Hey guys, it's Mariana, and as you can tell by the title of this video, just because this season of Game of Thrones is over doesn't mean I am done talking about the show. I have to say, overall, season 5 is one of my less favorite seasons of Game of Thrones, and the reason I say less favorite is because I love the show, and even my least favorite seasons are still way ahead of seasons of other shows in my book, because I love Game of Thrones and I'm really looking forward to season 6. But I thought season 5 was pretty inconsistent, and that's why I'm not the biggest fan of it. There were some really good moments this season, but there were also some really odd moments as well as some not so good moments. And that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today in this video. I wanted to tell you about what I think are the 5 best and worst things about season 5 of Game of Thrones. And of course, huge spoiler alert, because I'm not just going to be talking about specific scenes, I'm also going to be talking about storylines overall in this season. So if you're not caught up on Game of Thrones, you probably shouldn't be watching this, because I will spoil everything. I'm going to be starting with what I think are the weakest parts of this season, and at number 5 I have Brienne of Tarth. First of all, she's not even supposed to be where she is in this season, and I am all for changes from the books and interpreting the story differently when it actually works, and I think this season didn't really work for Brienne of Tarth. Gwendoline Christie is so much better than her role in season 5, because she spent most of the season waiting around for Sansa to give her a signal. She got to the Winterfell area pretty quickly, and then she was just hanging out there. We got to see her fight one time. Her fight scenes are always amazing, and there are things in the books that are fights and just general dramatic moments that could have worked so much better than this waiting around in the tower this season. What was that all about? And don't even get me started on the part in the book that has to do with her and Brotherhood Without Banners and the character that all of the book readers have been waiting for on the show that is pretty much guaranteed not happening at this point. It is just a missed opportunity, because like I said, Gwendoline Christie is just so much better than her role in Game of Thrones this season, and that was definitely disappointing for me. At number 4, I have Daenerys and her storyline in this season, which I thought was pretty boring. I mean, I was most excited about Daenerys and what was going on with her at the end of season 1. Ever since then, it's kind of been downhill. There were some moments that were interesting throughout the rest of the show, and there was a moment this season when she finally mounted her dragon. That was exciting, but in general, I am just tired of her on this continent that she's on, learning to rule. I didn't see any character development. To be honest, my favorite scenes with her this season were the ones that had to do with Tyrion and the two of them interacting and talking about ruling and all of that. And that tells you a lot about how fun her storyline was. Also, I didn't like where her storyline ended this season, her being lost and surrounded by Dothraki and clearly in trouble. Personally, I thought her disappearing on her dragon would have been a better ending, because it would have been an epic ending for her character. And instead, we got this worrisome ending for her character. So I wasn't really a big fan of that either. At number 3, I have essentially everything that is going on at Dorne. I thought Dorne was just such a missed opportunity in general. It is very different from what happens in the books, and there are characters from the books that are missing, which, whatever, they decided to go with Ilaria Sand. But I thought that the whole Sand Snakes thing was just underwhelming, and that fight between them and Jaime and Bronn was just poorly choreographed, and I was disappointed with Dorne, and I was so excited about that storyline this season, and they kind of took it nowhere. Number 2 is the sacrifice of Shireen Baratheon, and if you've seen my recap of episode 9, you know that I was pretty hopeful about the outcome of that whole thing, and even though the scene was absolutely horrifying to watch, and just hearing her scream was just, it was terrible. It was a terrible scene. It wasn't terrible because of the way it was done, because I thought it was actually shot really well and it had a huge emotional impact, but it was just way too heavy to watch and very intense. But the reason that I am so disappointed by what happened is because it was absolutely pointless. Her sacrifice did nothing other than make us dislike Stannis, and then when he got defeated, it didn't really faze anybody, because we're like, well, we have Ramsay, who we don't like, and we have Stannis, who we don't like, and basically one of them's gonna die, and that's totally fine. Now, I know that this event is something that came from George R.R. Martin, so maybe it will happen in the books at some point, but to be honest, I think that he will make it make more sense than it did in the show. And the number one worst thing about this season for me was Sansa Stark and her entire storyline, and particularly the scene where she got raped by Ramsay, and I talked about it in my recap. I was very upset along with everybody after that scene, and here's the thing. It is not just about the fact that she got raped. That was terrible on its own, and it was the final scene of that episode, and it just left you depressed for days. But my main issue is with what happened to her character in this season overall, because at the end of season 4, we had this new Sansa. We had Elaine Stone. She was going to play the Game of Thrones. She was going to side with Peter Baelish. She was out of King's Landing, and she was done suffering, and it looked like it was finally the time for Sansa to shine. But in season 5, she gets quickly married off to Ramsay, and then once again has no control over her situation. Yes, she tries to break out of it. She does talk back to people here and there, but in general, she is back to old Sansa that was being tortured by people. A lot of what happened at Winterfell with her character had to do with Theon and his character development, and I don't want Sansa used as character development device for Theon. That's just ridiculous to me. Even her escape is thanks to freaking Theon, who I so strongly dislike. Basically, I feel like this season, instead of taking a step forward, her character development just took a step back, because it's just the same Sansa from before, except for now she's a little sassier. That's it. And I'm really tired of seeing her being tortured by random people. Moving on to the best parts of the season, at number 5, I have the House of Black and White. And Arya Stark as well. I have to say that Arya's storyline wasn't really the most exciting storyline this season. It was pretty slow, and it wasn't until the end that things got crazy and we finally saw her in action. But the House of Black and White itself was amazing, I thought. First, we got Jaqen back in his role of Sexy Jesus this season, and that was really exciting. I was so excited when I saw him on my screen. I think it was episode 2 that he revealed himself. I thought that was great. I thought the whole atmosphere of the House of Black and White was really mysterious, and the whole Chamber of Faces thing was just crazy. And then the final scene with him and Arya, where he poisons himself and dies, and then Arya is freaking out, but then he comes back because it's not really him, it's nobody, and Arya goes blind. That was one of the most exciting things about this season, so that one is definitely making my list. At number 4, I have Marjorie and Cersei, and I just loved the passive-aggressive struggle between the two of them. I loved both of their storylines and where they went, but in general, the scenes of them together and how they're trying to wage this war against each other in King's Landing without making it too obvious to other people was A, interesting to watch, and B, kind of hilarious. At number 3, I have the Sparrows and the High Sparrow himself. And I am obviously not the biggest fan of religious fanatics in real life, because who is? But in fiction, I find these topics very interesting and very intriguing, and this particular group of people is just crazy, and I don't know, still don't know what the High Sparrow's goal is, like what is the deal with this guy, and what this group of people has brought to the show was just really interesting because it definitely redistributed the power a little bit, and we saw something that Cersei did bite her in the ass later and land her in this really bad position, which, by the way, without the High Sparrow and Lancel joining the Sparrows, we wouldn't have all the crazy stuff and the amazing acting that's going on with Cersei's character. So I thought they brought a lot to the season, and I'm very intrigued to see what they do next. At number 2, I have Jon Snow, pretty much all things Jon Snow, and he definitely became one of my favorite characters this season, which is ironic because he may very well be dead. Let's hope not. In general, what was going on at the Wall this season were my favorite scenes, and most of them had to do with Jon Snow. Everything that had to do with Mance Rayder and all of their interactions, everything that had to do with Stannis and Jon interacting, then when Jon became Lord Commander and all of the difficult decisions that he had to make, and even the way his maybe death played out was absolutely brilliant. And I obviously hope that it's not permanent, but at the same time, if it is, it was a very powerful way to go, and I just love Jon Snow now, and once again hope he's not dead. And at number 1, the very not surprising favorite part of season 5 is episode 8, Hardhome, and of course I'm talking about the last 20 minutes of the episode, in particular the fight scene with the White Walkers and the Whites and everything that happens at Hardhome itself, but also the rest of that episode. We had the Tyrion and Daenerys interactions, which were awesome. We also had Cersei in her cell and some amazing acting from her. We had Sansa finally find out from Theon that he didn't kill her 2 little brothers, and that was a very important thing for her character as well. So in general, this whole episode was awesome. And then of course the final fight was just probably one of my favorite parts of the entire show. I'm not going to lie, it was so epic, and it was just something that kept me at the edge of my seat the whole time, and I cannot wait to see more White Walker stuff because it's going to be good. That's it for my 5 best and worst things about Game of Thrones Season 5. Let me know what your favorite and least favorite parts of the season were. Do we have any of the same ones? Do you think I'm completely wrong? Let me know what you think in the comments below. I would love to talk to you about it. And like I said, even though the season is over, there are still going to be videos that are Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire related. They won't happen every week because then my channel will just become a Game of Thrones channel, and that's not my goal, but there will be videos from time to time that have to do with the world of Ice and Fire. So look forward to that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I would really appreciate that. I hope you're having an amazing day, and I will see you soon in my next video. Bye!